Learn how to learn it yourself. What's up, guys? I'm going to be doing another Q&A video, this time based off of the same post that I used last time, which I'll link here. The Twitter user looking for limbs asked a couple of different questions in the same post. This one I thought was relatively interesting and I kind of wanted to go into it. He asked, what are my top 3 things that I've learned so far in information security? That's kind of a difficult question because I've only been in this for right on about a year now. I graduated college in May of last year, so a little bit over a year now. And I've held 2 different positions with 2 different companies doing 2 different completely different jobs. And that's on top of my personal research and all of that fun stuff. So I've had the opportunity to learn a lot, but obviously, since I'm doing the OSCP and all of that other fun stuff, I haven't learned that much. First one that I would recommend that it doesn't really make a lot of lists is be a better writer. So when I first started with my first job, I was an analyst, a threat intelligence analyst. And what I realized very early on was that I was relatively technical, but I did not know how to write. I wasn't a very good analytical writer. So there are a couple of different resources that you can look for that teach you better writing. Most of the writing in threat intel right now is based off of the U.S. intelligence community guidelines and the U.S. military guidelines, but some different shops that you'll work for have different kind of standards for how they want you to write, especially if you're an analyst. Now I'm not an analyst, so I don't do the same exact kind of writing, but it's been the theme throughout my entire... They're doing my roof right now, so that's probably what you just heard. So that's been kind of the theme so far throughout my career, is knowing how to write. And that's not something that they taught me, obviously, in computer science, but it's something that I picked up in Chinese. I kind of had to learn how to write in a different language, and that made me think about different writing styles and different ways of writing, like, using implicit language versus explicit language, and, then switching gears towards the much more analytical, much more structured type of writing that I had to at my first job, and then switching to a completely different kind of writing that I have in this job. It's just a completely different world. So, it's difficult to say prepare, or like practice writing, because it's not really a style of writing that you're going to learn unless you're in an intelligence program or something like that in college. But I would definitely focus way more on the soft skills, especially if you're going into something less technical. My job is relatively technical, and it's about as technical as I can make it, but it's still way more focused on soft skills. So that segues relatively well into my second point: learn soft skills very well. The first thing that I had to do very early on was learn how to work in a team. Analysis in just about any shop that you'll be in it's not going to end up being a one-person job. It's going to be a team-based job. You're going to have to work with your coworkers. You're going to have to work with people who are above you. And once you get into leadership, you have to learn how to lead people. So learn how to work in a team. That's stuff like, learning how to develop workflows from scratch when you don't necessarily have a workflow for a certain task. That's things like conflict management. That's things like collaborative writing and, different other skills that are going to really do you very well throughout your career. There was a recent thread that was an absolute trash fire. It was god awful. I was talking about people that this guy called 10x engineers. And basically his point through this entire thing is that there are just rainbow unicorns in the engineering field, that they can do it all themselves. They don't need a team. They're just absolute rock stars, and they work in this very specific way. And besides the fact that it was all wrong, one of the main points of the thread was that some people don't have to work with teams. If we're being honest, it's kind of true. There are certain people who don't have to work with teams. But in my opinion, their career is going to be artificially limited because of the fact that they, A, haven't had experience working with teams, or B, aren't good at working with teams. That was something that I learned very early on, was that team building kind of mentality where that you have to do everything collaboratively is incredibly important. Kind of having that mindset of, okay, I'm not a one-man shop. I need to learn how to do this with the team because everybody's got their own unique strengths and weaknesses. Mine was definitely writing. So I was able to kind of explain things from a technical perspective, and the other people on my team would write it up, and they would kind of help me develop my own writing style while I would teach them kind of the technical points. And that's followed me up into this new job as well. So I would definitely recommend early on working on soft skills like working with a team. Definitely work on your writing capabilities and your collaborative writing. That's how those two kind of tie together, is you're never going to write a report alone. At the very least, it's going to go through a peer review process, and you're going to have to work with your peers to explain why you wrote it this way, and they're going to explain to you why you shouldn't have. And that's just going to be vital for your future career. The third and final one that I think is probably the most common in most of these how to infosec kind of vlogs is learn how to Google. And I don't just mean Google. Google is kind of like a blanket term that I use to say learn how to learn it yourself. You can look up videos that tell you, okay, if you've got this operating system, you use this exploit and you run it through this command and you've got root. And I'm learning that through the OSCP. It's a lot of the blogs that I'll look up are just like, yeah, just /3445.py and then you've got root. It's that easy. Well, it is that easy, but I spoke a second ago about, career limiting decisions. And if you get into the mindset of, okay, I can do it, meaning, okay, like I can type this command in and get root, that's not the right mindset to be in. You still don't know how to do it, why the exploit works the way it does, what the flaw is. You don't have to know how to fix it. You don't necessarily have to know how to write the exploit from scratch yourself, but you do absolutely have to know how the underlying technologies work. Otherwise, you're just going to, be completely limited by what you can find in the first couple of pages of a Google search. Knowing how the technologies work, and more importantly, knowing how you can teach yourself that, is incredibly important. For example, I know that I'm a visual learner, so I pull up a lot of IPsec's videos and Live Overflow's videos and all of that. And, I watch those as kind of, ways to teach me how these exploits work. For example, I was looking up the dirty cow exploit, and Live Overflow had a really, really good breakdown of how the dirty cow exploit works, why it works the way it does, and kind of, the technical details about why it works that way. So I would recommend just finding it, even if you're more of you learn through reading blogs, find blogs that you like and find blogs that teach you how the underlying technologies work and why these exploits work the way they do, and why, SSH tunneling works the way it does, and why, or how this brute force scanner works. Even if it's like a tool that's already written, you still need to understand how it works. Read over source code. That's been some of the most valuable, information that I've been able to get, is looking on ExploitDB and reading over the source code of a lot of these exploits. And that also kind of avoids a couple of dangerous situations, like downloading binaries that say that there is a certain exploit that might be backdoored. It's happened before, and it will continue to happen as long as people download binaries and think that they're probably the exploits that are described. You can backdoor a exploit just like you can backdoor anything else. So I would definitely recommend looking over source code, making sure it's not, backdoored, and then using that source code as a way to teach yourself how the exploit works. It's a great way to learn assembly. It's a great way to learn kind of the lower level stuff. It's just like a really great resource. So to wrap it all up, learn how to write, learn how to kind of put your thoughts on paper and explain them in a very structured manner. That's very difficult to do, right off the bat. I'm still not a great analytical writer, but it's very important long-term for your career, whether you're a technical person or not. Definitely learn how to work with a team and learn other soft skills like that, but learn how to work collaboratively, how to write collaboratively, how to build, good teams once you become a leader. And then learn how to Google, learn how to teach yourself, learn how to read exploit code, learn why the underlying technologies work that way. And I think if you follow those 3 tips, and probably a dozen more that I missed, but definitely those top 3, I think that you'll probably have a much easier time in information security than I did, because those were 3 lessons that I had to learn the hard way, unfortunately. Thank you guys for all of the support. The subscriptions, comments, and likes have been awesome. I just put up the final week vlog for OSCP Struggle Bus, and it's already doing really well. So, you guys have been awesome, showing support on Twitter and YouTube and all of that other fun stuff. But yeah, thank you guys for the support. Make sure to keep showing it, and take it easy.